Hello there. I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a battle master, definitely a wizard, and tonight I am joined by one of the Rising Wind's newest knights. Arty is here to talk to us about being a battle knight. Arty, thank you for coming on the show. Welcome.
It's a pleasure.
So, Arty, how long have you been playing Amtgard?
I started playing Amtgard in the year 2014, so I'm just past a decade now. Don't let
Wow.
the age fool you.
That's awesome. Have you been playing continuous, or have you been taking breaks in the middle, or what does that look
The
like for
only
you?
the only time I stopped was when we all had to stop.
COVID was a rough time for a lot of things. Arty, where's your home park out of?
Right now I'm playing out of VTR. That's the Springfield Park, Valley of the Twin Rivers.
Okay, cool. Arty, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to become a battle master? What did that process look like for you?
Very odd for me, considering I had played most of my time in Amtgard without the existence of the award ladder Battle Master and the Knighthood Battle Knight. I had a very interesting time when I became when I entered the belt line under Skiffy. She had one of the questions that she had me think about was what I wanted to focus on. Generally, the thought behind that was what path are you interested in if you are interested in becoming a knight?
Mm-hmm.
And I distinctly remember at the time I was not a paragon in anything yet, and I said, I think right now what I want to focus on is just being a paragon wizard. And that started a train of becoming more active in battle gaming. I had been having a lot of fun. Instead of looking for a knighthood, I just wanted to play the game. And eventually, playing the game became a knighthood. Playing class games became its own path. That was really interesting that first year or so after Orders of Battle were standardized.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, just because we were still trying to figure out what the bars were, who thing was. I believe I was the first person in the Rising Winds to receive Battlemaster that played exclusively in V8. I
Okay.
believe everybody prior to me had played at least in V7, if not prior editions.
Okay. Did you were you one of the original crew that got Battlemaster retroactively, or did you get it through orders?
I at the initial wave, I received my eighth, but quickly received my ninth at the next event. I don't know a lot behind that. If it thought it just might have been like, hey, judged a little wrong first, let's bump them up, or maybe the Bridge Wars that I was given that at was a pretty good showing. Either way, I received 8 at first, received a 9, and then roughly a year after getting the 8th was whenever I had received my Battle Master. I believe I was the third person to get their Battle Master in the Rising Winds after the initial wave. I believe the only other two before me were Duo and Juicy.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. How many paragons do you have?
Right now, I have 3, that being in order: Wizard, Assassin, and Paladin. Let's hope we can make that number a little bigger, though. I want to be tied for first again. I only got to live that up for maybe 5 minutes last time.
Yeah, Tyrant Ash has got 4 and seems pretty proud of that.
As he should be.
So, let's get into it a little bit. Can you tell me what's the difference between a good player and a battle master?
A lot of it is going to be a good player can perform well on their own and
Mm-hmm.
can always sway a fight on their own, but a battle master should be working with their team using tactical advantage as opposed to just going out playing and winning. Anybody can go out with a really good druid list, Icy Blast, a pole arm, and lycanthropy, and probably do well in any given battle game. But a battle master might say, hey, my team, instead of that, maybe my team needs a bard that's carrying either a lot of battery abilities, that way my team can keep playing, or perhaps a paladin, that way my team can keep moving with me when I'm pushing forward, as opposed to just walking through as a warrior trying to get as many kills as you can and saying scavenge to get the armor that you just lost back.
Okay. No, what's the difference between a battle master and a battle knight?
Battle master, I believe, is somebody who can do the leadership, and a battle knight is somebody who is showing other people how to do that leadership.
Okay, so
I
the
think
teaching element is
that
the
is
big
one of
difference.
the core facets, I believe, about knighthood and masterhood, is that you have a mountaintop, and masters are people who can reach the top. and knights are people who can reach down and help other people get to the top.
Okay. Artie, what does your training regimen look like? How do you keep in shape for battle games? How do you practice for battle gaming? And you've got some different classes that you're a Paragon in. How do you maintain those classes?
A lot of it is I play a lot of different things, but all at the same time. That probably doesn't sound like what I'm about to describe, but as opposed to Paladin, which I've been playing mostly at Kingdom events, mostly what the class I've probably played the most in the past year has actually been Monk, just because it's something that I find I can have a lot of fun with while not being too harsh of a problem at my local park, Valley of the Twin Rivers. One of the things I think is a really underrated facet of being a good battle gamer is knowing appropriately when to hold back so that more people are having fun. I find that is really important as a player to try to have as many people have fun if you're not in a competitive environment. So if it's not Bridge Wars, I might see if I'm playing a Paladin and the other team is having trouble chewing through armor, I might stand back and start trying to focus more on healing my teammates or trying to direct people where to go as opposed to openly pushing forward with a pole arm or sword and board and Florentine. As far as the physical aspect of it, I do generally get a lot of physical activity. I do a lot of walking. I do a lot of cardio. I generally do a lot of heavy lifting. A lot of that's part of my job, but a lot of that has also historically been something that I just do as a general workout regimen.
Okay.
And as far as mental, which a lot of people don't realize how important the mental part of it is for both focus and for memory. One of the things I like to do for memory, it's what I will preach every time I can. If you have incantations that you cannot remember, practice them in the shower. It is so much. There is so much behind that people just do not realize. I could not remember the heal incantation for the longest time, and I memorized both the heal incantation and the charge incantation by just trying to say them as many times as I could while I would shower.
Okay. That is a recurring theme that I've seen is practicing incants in non-standard places, not at park day. Practice them outside of park.
I can't remember. I think it might have been Madness out of Winter's Edge, but I believe he's mentioned before that he used to practice incantations when he was on a treadmill. I might be attributing that to the wrong person, but that's another really good example because then that can he's an excellent battle mage that helps him to be able to enunciate and be louder when he's running because he's actively exerting while he's also casting. Battle mage myself, and I know that you've had your fun with battle mage. It's something that could be really important is being able to make sure that you're heard, especially if you start an incantation when you're maybe 40, 50 feet away and you finish the incantation from 15 feet away.
Sure. Yeah. Maintaining that audibility at different ranges for sure. Artie, what's your favorite class to play right now?
Right now, surprisingly enough, it is Monk, just because I feel with Monk, it's got a lot that you can do, but it's, ironically enough, part of it is because I don't think Monk is a very good class.
Okay.
Monk has a lot of things that you can do that are fun, that aren't necessarily too strong. As part of that, I think that being able to heal or being able to get aggressive or being able to defend are all really important things that a team might need. Really, the only thing a Monk is missing in its core kit, and before you getting into archetypes, is the ability to remove states from other players. Other than that, a Monk can really do anything you need at a given moment, even if it can't do them all well, and it gives you kind of a bit of a challenge to see how much you can do.
Okay. Do you see yourself doing some more Monk at like Kingdom level, or is that just a park endeavor for you?
I really would like to because part of it is as I have come to enjoy Monk, and Monk was the first class I got level 6 in, I think that's probably as far as working toward a Paragon actively, the closest I'll probably be. I'll probably continue just to play whatever I'm having most fun with. But I think right now I'm going to put Monk up on the pedestal, and I think I'll find something different to work on at park level to try to have fun with. Right now I'm thinking Archer, ironically enough.
Oh, so the opposite of Monk.
Yes, in almost every way. I really like the Artificer, and I really get to make the pun of Artificer being Arty for Arty.
Artie the Artificer. That kind of works. Okay.
I like the strap board that I was using on Paladin. I'm thinking of designing something similar for Archer. Maybe it's a little less intrusive physically. That way I would be able to use the shield benefit that Artificer gives. That and the the all pinning arrows strategy is, I think, something that'd be really fun to use with both regular pinning arrows, but also a pistol crossbow already preloaded on the hip. Just
Mm,
something ready in case you need to back up.
okay.
Just backpedal, fire your pinning arrow, and keep backing up in case you need to, and see where you can go from there. And maybe you can hit one of your extra arrows after that. Maybe you just popped a druid with a pinning arrow, and now you have a phase arrow, and you can execute them properly.
There you go. Okay, cool. When you are playing monk, what's your preferred weapon set look like for that? What are you doing for monk?
Generally, my preference is to bring a set for Florentine to the field with me.
Hmm.
But generally, I'm playing with a shorter war pole, the one that I generally have been playing with Paladin in a non-competitive environment,
Hmm.
just because I find that it lets me get into a closer quarters combat while still fighting with a great weapon. One of the things about that, it's not necessarily something that's extravagantly good, but it lets you find different angles other than 90 and 45 to be able to try to make shots and stabs in whenever you're line fighting.
Okay.
That said, my preferred playstyle lately, given recent changes to the rules of play for Monk, has been the Mystic Monk, which gets access to Force Bolts. I've never been the biggest fan of Heavy Throne on Monk, not because I think they're bad, but just because I like to not have to carry so much around actively.
Hmm.
If I would ever see one on the field and it's free game, then absolutely I'll throw it back. But the Force Bolts I really like because of the ability to blow up weapons. The Suppression Bolt I think is kind of funny. I don't really think it's all that good in its current state, but I do like the concept of hitting an assassin in the chest with it, them thinking, "Oh, I'm good," but then they realize they can't shadow step or blink when I'm running at them with Florentine, since I can't use a pole arm.
Right.
The armor has been an odd but welcome addition. I haven't done any medium yet, but I imagine that once I do, I'm going to miss that.
Mm. The armor I felt like was a really weird switch up that they gave to monk. Um,
I as rules rep, I personally have advocated for a change on it, but it's not been received very well, which is perfectly fine. It's due to just how other kingdoms prefer. There are some kingdoms that just think monk with armor is a lot healthier. You have less to worry about than worrying about new enchantments. My preference would have been a ward self, but that's not really here nor there. It's just a defensive option for a class with no defensive properties outside of missile block.
well, don't make short of enlightened soul. That's already a pretty
Okay,
powerful.
fair. The passive is pretty good.
You,
If
you
only it
trade
affected my
off. Oh,
weapon
I don't get
too.
physical armor, but you can't yell at me anymore. I mean,
You can
that's
still yell at my sword or my pole though. That's pretty rough.
there. Yeah, I mean,
At least you can't turn off the enlightened soul, but
so how do you go about evaluating a battle game? How do you figure out what the plan is?
sometimes you depending on it varies depending on what battle game you're going into. Uh, when we were doing XTC, the team FC Inc., that was myself, Twilus, Snaps, Narsh, and McGall, coached by Juicy. The finals for that, we ended up going into a game when we noticed, I believe, the other team had 3 different archers, and we didn't have our team comp yet. So we said, well, we were having people play Druid, but what if somebody just plays healer and we take protection from projectiles? And
Oh no,
it was a competitive environment.
they get what
So
they got at
I
that
was,
point.
unfortunately, if it's a competitive environment, I'm not going to hold back as much. I didn't even get the protection projectiles. I opted to go without physical armor on assassin and just got a magical ancestral armor,
Hmm.
which filled a lot of the same roles, and it was a pretty one-sided endeavor. But at the same time, sometimes you're going in and everybody already has their class loadouts selected before teams are even selected for a game. Sometimes you don't know something about a game that maybe in fact, I think a lot of it is to take what you have and figure out where best you fill with your team. Sometimes the paladin with a shield and a polearm, you're going to absolutely be the frontliner, but sometimes you have 16 warriors, each with their own hardened shield, or you have a bunch of healers that are pocketing somebody with their imbue shields, and you think, well, maybe I'm just going to go over here and skirmish with the assassins and be the tough guy over here until somebody comes and stops me. I think a lot of that is actually done once the game is started, prior as opposed to prior to the game.
Okay.
Bridge Wars notwithstanding, obviously competitive formats, there's so much that goes into that. Just figuring out what class dynamics you're going to be having with other players on your team. If you have class limits, who's going to be filling what roles? For instance, Bridge Wars this past year, we had,
Right.
I think every team was fielding at least 4 heavily armored players, if I recall. At that point, who's going to be playing paladins? Who's going to be playing warriors? Who's going to be playing anti-paladins? Is there one of those classes that we value less? Considering the format for that, going into it, the prevalence of extended immunities being really big, but not necessarily using your extended immunities as opposed to something else. If the other team isn't focusing a lot on shutting down your casters, you may not want to have to worry about making sure that your casters can't be suppressed if they're already suppressing the other team's casters.
Right.
A lot of being able to play in the moment, I think, is big, but playing in the moment based off of what you know, what you've already prepared for, as opposed to what you've actively prepared for as part of your game.
Okay. Yeah. So when you get out onto, let's say, like the random event at the kingdom level, we're out at Billy Creek, we're on the big field. How do you go about evaluating where you're going to go on the field? How are you picking your targets? What are you doing there?
Depending on my role, I will generally, if I needing to get into the fray as fast as possible, I will use a natural speed. Generally, if I'm playing an assassin or a wizard, to try to take as much ground as I possibly can before an engagement starts. That way my team has more coverage behind me. Even if I may die or may not actually make any meaningful plays before I have to back up, I may be able to take enough aggression away from the rest of my team as a generally squishier target to allow them to gain more forward ground. As opposed to if I am in a less squishy role, when I have to be a bit more of a tank role or a support role, I am not going to be taking that. I'm actually going to generally, personally, my preference is to walk as one of the last people forward. That way I can look at what holes there are, where our weaknesses are as a team, where the weaknesses are on the other team, and try to either direct my team to move into those holes with me or fill in whatever gap my team needs.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions. I want to shift a little bit away from battle gaming specifically and talk about some general advice here. What advice would you give somebody who wants to be a battle master?
Most importantly, don't forget to have fun. I've talked about it a bit in regards to sometimes knowing when to hold back, but one of the things when Battlemaster became a structured award ladder was it took the core aspect of our game, class battle gaming, and attached not just a masterhood but a knighthood to it.
Right.
How that operates, it makes people want to do that at a high level. That did cultivate a bit of a time where people might be playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, not being really willing to let off the gas a bit, and being able to remember that sometimes you having fun may cause the detriment of fun to a large group of people, depending on how you do it. The core of the game, even in a competitive environment, should hopefully be try to have as many people have fun as possible. And if other people aren't having fun, eventually you will not have fun. I distinctly remember one of the things that started getting big around that time. I believe I took note of it at Tal'Dorei Legends last year, was certain older spell incantations being used by some players who'd been in the game, and nothing wild. Legitimately, the biggest one was the incantation for awe. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was not what it currently is in V8. And I remember being upset at the wrong incantation being used. And now I look back at it and I think this is correct, but it's not right, if that makes sense. That, well, technically it is not the right incantation. It's if it's really not in the spirit of everybody having as much fun, if it's very clear and very close, generally just accept it. In a competitive environment, maybe I understand making sure everything that's being done right, but whenever you're going into something fun where everybody's just trying to have fun time swinging stick, don't forget that it's just a game.
Yeah. Okay.
I really don't think I can stress enough. If you play with no aspect other than to try to get some sort of an award, to try to get some sort of recognition, to do something more than just play the game, eventually that will take a toll on you.
I understand that. A follow up for that then is if someone is on that path towards trying to become a battle master, trying to become a paragon, personally in my own play, I've experienced stress about trying to make sure I'm always always on for a game, always being there and doing the very best, the most optimal situations because I know that people are watching and it creates this like weird stress thing where I want to go out and have fun and this is my relaxation hobby, but then I'm stressed about my relaxation hobby because if I screw something up, then that's all anyone's going to remember. Do you have any advice on how to get out of that mindset and get back to that core of fun that we're all looking for?
Uh, I have a fun answer that I'll give first before getting to fun, but the first one is if it's not gonna severely detriment your team, troll a little bit.
Okay.
One of my favorite moments in a battle game and the time that we've been at Billy Creek Village was a game where everybody was on one team was playing some variation of a goblin. And I remember that it was a situation where some players would have limited lives. And one of the players on the other team was dead and cursed with no lives left and was remaining on the field. And I just thought, if this person just gets up and leaves, the game is going to keep going and they just had to walk away from it. And that's not fun. So this being prior to some of the rules changes, I'm playing Paladin.
Mm-hmm.
I pushed all of my team forward and then stepped back and cast Greater Resurrect on the enemy player on the other team so that he could continue to play the game, and then snuck him around the back of my team so that he could go back to his team. And stuff like that.
That's great.
Did I ruin a game by doing that? No, absolutely not. In
You
fact,
made that guy's day though. Like
I probably made more fun happen by helping the other team, and that's entirely fine sometimes. I remember I think it was the first battle cry after COVID, but it might have no, I think it was just the first event that Sev had been able to come to after COVID, and I was playing Paladin in that game as well. And so I was so far in the enemy's back line, and just because of how Forest Lake as a site works, how you can go through so many different areas. I'm not sure if you've been able to be there yourself,
I haven't
but
made it out there yet.
it's got some of the most fun terrain just because of how actually natural the terrain is,
Okay.
natural forest. And I just happened to find myself in ridiculously deep enemy territory. And I think that we were pretty clearly winning the game, but it was still a lot. And I walked up to Sev, chuckled with him about some sort of rules joke, I'm sure it was. And I asked him if he wanted my extend immunities. And when he asked me why, I just told him, I just want to see how much you can mess with the bards on my team.
Okay. Is that the site that the Endrain is going to be at this year for?
That's the site that Battle Cry is traditionally at, though I wouldn't be surprised, given upcoming changes, if we may not end up having that there. Personally, it is a very small site for what we generally have numbers-wise for a Kingdom Endrain. I don't believe we've ever had more than 150 people at an event there, and if we were to look at something along the lines of a standard Rising Winds event, we would probably need to take some extra precautions for the site. That said, if it does end up being there, the best thing about it is definitely the battle game terrain.
That sounds awesome. Okay. So I have a couple of knight specific questions for you. The first one I've got is, what are you doing to better battle games now?
This is a really fun one because I get to point to a very common trinity of sorts with class battle gaming. There
Okay.
is a really large overlap between people who are good battle gamers, good battle game reeves, and good battle game designers, which are all three different award paths. One of them not so much for reeving, but we do have Paragon Reeve Walker in the middle, as well as Battlemaster and Master Smith. And you see people like Subutai, who has multiple Paragons and has made some of the most fun games that I've played in the past couple of years. People who have that capacity to create fun games are generally people who understand that a game is played and generally can perform at a high level, like Subutai. And I really think that pushing forward, being able to continue to make sure games are fun, even if I'm not actively a person running games, is a big thing. But helping people who are designing games know how to balance upcoming games, trying to find more ways to improve morale for both teams on the field, and trying to make sure that everybody is having fun, but also following the rules to the best. Wait a minute. Sometimes the best way to have fun is by mutually breaking the rules.
Okay.
Sometimes a Reeve might see you do something right, see that it has a negative impact on the game, and says, nah, that didn't happen. I've seen Sev do it a couple of times, and every time I think everybody, including the person that he told no to, walk away happy.
Okay.
That's a really core concept to it. So partially, I do plan to continue to run games, maybe not as often as some of our more experienced Master Smiths, but hopefully that is something that I do get the opportunity to do again in the future. I've already done Warcraft for the Kingdom level at Bridge Wars and multiple at Midgard, but I would really like to have a more casual opportunity, something that's not a tournament format, to be able to sink my teeth into. And furthermore than that, things like this interaction here, as well as my current position as rules rep
Hmm.
or the Rising Winds, where I can continue to try to use our unique experiences as one of the largest subgroups in the entirety of Amtgard to continue to try to create rules that will help more people have fun. It's not something that everybody can do, since only one person gets that position in each kingdom. But as the opportunities will come to me, I want to continue to use them as much as I can. And that
Okay.
may also include potentially in the future. I've pondered Guildmaster of Reeves. I'm currently Guildmaster of Reeves Pro Tem in Midgard, but Kingdom GMR is another thing that has a lot of that can have a lot of impact, especially with the Reeves test, in regards to how we can contribute to battle gaming knowledge, battle gaming preparation.
Okay. That's quite a lot of stuff you've got going on there. I'm personally very excited to see your upcoming event, whenever that ends up being, where you're gonna Warcrat for us.
I can't wait for you guys to run around in Terraria or Warframe or whatever it ends up being. Battlestar Galactica. I have no idea. That
Oh,
was
all of
KO's
these
thing,
sound like
but
excellent events. I was joking around with Gore earlier today about shenaniganry for battle gaming, and we tried to figure out what class the Lone Ranger would be.
oh,
Uh,
shen- I've never heard a good shenanigan story that happened in a competitive event.
it
I've
can't be
only ever
competitive, but
if you're
imagine just
climbing.
somebody with a silver sword running around only legging people. Just,
Nobody's climbing the castle at Keep trying to make sure that they're winning the whole event, or they're just doing it because they think it's fun.
right. Okay. Getting us back on track. So now that you're a knight, you get the opportunity to give out belts to people. Do you think you're going to do that like right away? Do you have people lined up in the wings to take on belts, or how are you going to handle that?
I did actually already have some people at arms that I'm giving upgrades to. One of them isn't as invested in battle gaming as the other, but thankfully I do have two paths that I get to practice the discipline of. They are very much more art oriented, but the other one is pretty interested in both of the paths, and I'm really excited about that. Personally, I don't like to tie how I'm going to be determining belts. I will be uh, trying to figure it out more in the future, but for the moment, I don't think tying a number to anything is specific. I know some people have used specific benchmarks in which order
Sure.
of discipline somebody is approaching to try to find, but I'd rather try to look at it as a matter of does this person feel that they are ready to make the commitment to this level of tutelage? A person at arms, a page, those are people that I do hope, if I do have those people at any given time, that I'm able to provide an adequate amount of mentorship, an adequate amount of support to. But whenever you're talking about a squire generally, and I inherit a bit of that ideology from Skiffy as my knight, is generally somebody who has their path to knighthood, has their discipline set, has what they want to do and what they are practiced in and what they clearly will be doing to make sure that they achieve the masterhood and appropriately earn any knighthoods.
Okay. Cool. How do you think you're going to go about finding new people to join your belt line? Are you going to wait for people to come to you, or are you going to go around kind of offering belts to people?
For the moment, I think just given, oddly enough, I don't know if people have noticed that I'm a little young, but one of the odd things with this is a lot of time a student-mentor relationship can just naturally feel awkward whenever the mentor is a younger person. That doesn't necessarily mean it's impossible. Doesn't mean it's bad. But for the time being, right now, I think it's best if I help people as they come to me, if they're not already part of my belted family.
Hmm.
Generally, the people who I'm willing to help anybody that is willing to learn, whether that be somebody that wants me to come to them. But I also don't want to interject myself on people who may not need it, who may not uh, want it. I mean, I understand if somebody is comfortable where they are and does not feel like they want that interpersonal relationship, if they just want to show up and play and then go home. In that regard, personally, mostly it will probably be as I start to get closer with people who have been wanting to learn from me. That'll probably be a discussion I have with them at that point, whether it be in regards to arts and sciences, whether it be in regards to battle games, or in the future, if it comes to battle game design, other aspects of Amtgard that I may be able to assist with. I'd be more than happy to help anybody with that. And generally, I feel like a belted relationship will be founded upon being able to help somebody move forward as you become closer with them as a person and then as a student mentor.
Okay. Artie, just out of curiosity, how old are you?
I am 26. I
Okay.
believe I am the youngest knight in the Rising Winds. Not the youngest master. I believe at the moment that's Snaps. And I definitely can't speak for the rest of Amtgard, but I imagine I'm probably pretty young compared to most of the current knights of Amtgard.
Okay. I'd love to see like a nice chart that lays out like the
I mean,
where everybody is.
I wouldn't even be the youngest person to be knighted in the Rising Winds, I believe. I believe Raven was knighted at 25.
Hmm. Well, and that I feel like is also going to skew more with time because as we have more time pass, more people are going to retire and
Oh, for sure.
they technically will hold on to their knighthood. So the average age is going to be skewed. But if we looked at our average knights, that doesn't seem outside the realm of reasonability. But I mean, you've got it. So there's nothing anybody can do about it now. When I heard that you were getting knighted, my first thought was, well, it's about time. He's been waiting around forever.
Well, waiting. Well, people don't know that I actually have had opportunities in the past and declined them for one reason or another, whether it just be the timing or and one of the things that I think what people don't know. Personally, you should feel ready to be a knight, and I definitely had a time period where I actually did decline knighthood because I did not feel at the time that it was something that befit me. I think that's something to look to for a lot of people. If you feel like you may have something to improve on, personally, I ended up going through a lot and becoming monarch. After that, joining the board of directors, being rules rep, and while it feels nice now, I definitely believe that being able to look at myself and think, no, I have more growth before that is something that helped me to actually have the mindset of a knight.
Okay. This is a non-standard question, but since you are the rules rep, I have a couple of rules rep questions that I've wanted to
These are fun, and I hope I have answers for them.
So I've got a couple of specific ones. So do you think that in the next, let's say 3 years, that Amtgard International or the whoever the approving body is going to change credit requirements for levels?
I think that we can definitely see that get lower, but I think it won't go as low as people see. There are some kingdoms that I find it odd being from the Rising Winds, but I'm sure if I were from another location, it wouldn't be nearly as odd to me. But there are some kingdoms where they really love the credit leveling system. I'm not sure particularly why, but I think eventually we will see it get lowered, but not ever removed entirely, for sure.
That makes sense. You want people to actually practice their classes before they start trying to run those.
Yeah, there still is an amount of growth. Generally, once somebody has, in my experience, somewhere between 4 and 6 level 6 classes, they're generally capable of playing any class at least at a proficient level.
Mm-hmm.
But
just with the crossover of abilities, the
crossover abilities and the crossover of just knowledge, watching other people play those classes and use those abilities. Honestly, the more you play the game, the more you just understand the game.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it gets to a point where, oh, well, I want to play warrior, but I have 6 warrior credits from the 6 non-class game park days I went to 6 years ago. Well, do I play a level 6 warrior for a while? I think that this way that the Rising Winds tends to go about portraying levels is pretty healthy, as long as we aren't forcing that on other people.
Okay. Do you think 24-inch daggers are ever going to come about?
I hope so. Not even just for the personal fun of a longer weapon without having to take the spell points, but also even as a safety mechanism. I definitely have had times where I had to wield a dagger to fulfill a certain role in a battle game, jugging is an instance. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you swing your dagger, you just feel like you're boxing somebody, and
it feels unsafe. Like those daggers are just too punchy. Like
I don't want to throw haymakers at people. If you're trying to slash with a dagger, I'm betting you're gonna miss, or you're gonna accidentally stab, or you're gonna actually punch them. I really do hope so, just for safety. I don't really know one way or another if we will, because it's not something that's come up yet in my time as rules rep. But I think that's something that I really hope gets explored again. I don't know if that's in scope for the current cycle, but man, if it's me, the next cycle, or whoever else it may be, if it's not me, I really hope that they remember that idea and bring that up, because it'd be delightful.
Okay. When this current cycle of rules changes is done, how long will it be before changes can be made again?
Kind of depends on the way that the rules change facilitates. There's a very large possibility that sometime in the future, maybe the very soon future, maybe a bit more in the distant future, that we see some change to the rules revision process. Right now, the rules revision process operates on 2-year cycles.
Mm-hmm.
The next time that we'll have any major changes come to the rule book right now would be at the very earliest July. However, if I were to make an assessment based on how the playtest works, how recent playtest activity has gone, I would be more willing to bet that will not have a lot of significant changes as much as it will quality of life. Mm-hmm. I would bet that 2026 is whenever we'd be seeing the next more significant changes, considering right now any changes that happen over the duration of the next year would be limited to the scope of the current playtest, which generally is going to facilitate class archetypes, some minor quality of life adjustments, things to make Amtgard easier for people, like the 2-factor descriptors not requiring classes in case somebody may have trouble reading a sash color due to color blindness, or in some situations a player may not even be playing a class in some battle games, or maybe playing a monster.
Right. Or the problem I always seem to run into is people hold their shields Like,
Yeah.
they're just hiding their.
Yep.
You're like, best guess.
You might not the 99 times out of 100, they're probably not trying to hide their sash. They're probably just taking a defensive stance that covers
Oh,
their
I
body.
don't read maliciousness into it, but you
Oh,
get to a
yeah.
point where you're like, okay, I need 2 descriptors. At one point, I was at I don't remember what event it was, but there was somebody I wanted to cast a spell at, and I just could not see what her sash was. And I said, "Hey, you!" And she said, "That's not a descriptor." I'm like, "What are you?" And
Yeah, I really like that. Especially, I have colored vision issues myself. I remember the first keep on the Borderlands I went to. I was watching a battle game from the side that started before I had arrived, and I saw a player wearing chainmail, carrying a sword and shield, cast insult at somebody, and I thought, yeah, that's really cool for that warrior to be using their abilities. And I saw them cast confidence, and I got really confused because they had a dark blue sash that my colored vision interpreted as purple.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other one that always gets me is the barbarian anti-paladin
And
monk that has 1 sash for all 3, and it's like, come on, that. And the other one that we have a big problem with is those shoestring sashes, where people are like, "Yeah, here's my sash."
The shoestring sash. I'm not going to say I never had a sash that was a half an inch wide, but I am going to say if I did it, I was definitely in only my first year of playing, and I definitely didn't take that to a kingdom level.
Yeah, just have some pride in your class at least, I think that's a really big and good improvement, going to 2 descriptors not requiring class.
I think it's a really good accessibility improvement. I think anything that we see up until 2026 will either be very minor balance changes to fix problems that have been located during playtest, or those quality of life adjustments to help people play the game better despite any accessibility issues.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is we're probably not going to lose the no shields restriction on magic staves.
I have no clue. That technically could be in scope because we did have some changes involving magic staves in this current cycle. It could theoretically be something that still has the capacity to happen.
I haven't heard anybody else talking about. I was super stoked for magic staves. I still am. I think they're a really cool weapon choice and everything. But my first thought was, I'm going to play staff and board healer, because that just is so much blocking power at that point. And it counts as a free hand, so I could run up and, heal somebody while still maintaining that blocking power. I thought, ooh, this is going to be awesome. And then they broke my heart with the no shields or other weapons other than daggers. I'm like, okay.
I'm not sure if it's even intentional that classes other than the caster classes have access to them, because they're listed as a melee weapon, and a lot of martial classes have access to all melee. I'm not 100% sure that's intentional. I think that's just a happy, funny accident. And funnily enough, I have seen people play fighter classes using magic staff dagger. Twilis, we visited Griffin's Perch, and he decided he wanted to play martyr paladin with a magic staff and a dagger, taking people's states away from them and healing them, as opposed to playing paladin as an aggressive frontliner, and it was an absolute delight.
I love that idea. There's some wacky things you can do in this new rule set. I don't know if you realize this, but with the artificer archer build, you can play with unlimited mend flow archer. You don't need a bow at all. Play flow archer, where you're 3 points of armor, or is it 2 points or 3 points?
I believe it's only 2. But I mean, if you give me 3, I'm not going to complain.
I'm pretty sure it's 2.
I'm pretty confident it's 2. I believe Ash drilled that into my brain whenever he would beat me in 1v1 martial combat as an archer.
Yeah, just flow archer out there mending all of their equipment.
I'm actually excited for that. I think that's not going to be as big of a problem as some people might think it is, but I think it's going to be a funny thing that we do see now and again.
I don't think anyone's going to play it, but I really want someone to.
You might end up seeing me do it eventually, except I think I'm going to have too much fun carrying around pinning arrows to do exclusively that.
I just like the idea of just it's worse monk, because I blocked my arrow. All right, well, I mend my sword. Oh, I'm getting surrounded. I can't go into sanctuary. Let me use the reload incant super duper fast.
If you can get a silver tongue, then you might be able to get
could
something
pull it
fun
off.
there. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's all my rules reps question. Let's wrap this up and I'll let you go. Arty, obviously you've been in office, you've been the rules rep for a long time. Is it okay if people come up to you at events and ask you questions and talk shop?
Oh, I love that. Sometimes you might get me into a Midwest goodbye doing that. Sometimes I might be ready to go to my camp or my hotel room, and then somebody will start talking about why this one specific spell, it used to be Circle of Protection before the most recent rules change, is so weird. And then I'd sit there for an hour and a half, and by the end of the time, I'd forget what spell I started talking about whenever I'm over here talking about Finger of Death.
Okay. Do you have any final recommendations or advice for the folks at home?
Don't be afraid to put on a class sash that you've never worn before just to go goof off.
Awesome.
Goofing off is fun.
Well, on that fun note, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, please subscribe for more Amtgard battle gaming content. Get down in the comments if you have any questions for Arty. Arty, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, and we will see you all in the next one.
Been a delight.